In 1964, Elizabeth Taylor committed one grave error. She confided her innermost secrets to a journalist. They met aboard cruises and in hotel rooms for months. She would smoke cigarettes, pour whiskey, and open up about everything. She believed he was merely assisting her with her memoir. She was unaware that he was surreptitiously recording everything he said. Those cassettes came to light half a century later. Everyone believed they knew the woman who had been leading two separate lives. Cellophane Elizabeth was even her name for it. The truth was far more sinister. On February 27, 1932, Elizabeth Taylor was born in London. Her life appeared to be a film from the beginning. Her parents were rich art merchants in the United States. They operated an art gallery on Bond Street and resided in the exclusive district of Hampstead Garden. Colonel Victor Cazalet, who became her unofficial godfather, was one of the well-known politicians and artists they knew. But there was more to life than glamour. With war on the horizon in 1939, the U.S. Her father was instructed by Ambassador Joseph P. Kennedy to evacuate the family. Elizabeth, her mother, and her brother fled on the SS Manhattan in April of that year. After closing the gallery, her father remained behind and eventually joined them. After Pasadena, they moved to Beverly Hills. They quickly became a part of the social scene in Hollywood. When Elizabeth was 7 years old, this momentous event permanently altered her life. Elizabeth was in the news even as a toddler. She began taking dance lessons at the age of 3. She was exceptional, not just good. She even performed a dance for Princess Margaret and Elizabeth. Not many kids could envision such a crowd. It was made feasible by her parents' connections. They belonged to British upper society, and her mother had been an actress. People were already aware of Elizabeth's potential by the time they relocated to Los Angeles. Nobody protested when a friend offered a Hollywood screen test. Before she even made it to Hollywood, she had entertained royalty. Fame seemed to have been waiting for her all along. In 1942, Elizabeth landed her first film part at the age of 10 in There's One Born Every Minute. She secured a 7-year contract with Universal Pictures. But they fired her after only one movie. They believed she would not appeal to audiences because she appeared too mature. That choice proved to be a grave error. The others could see Elizabeth's star power. MGM picked her up right away. The opportunity to mold one of the greatest stars in history was lost on Universal. After winning 2 Oscars, Elizabeth enthralled audiences for more than 60 years. The setback for Universal turned into a win for MGM. When MGM signed Elizabeth in 1943, Hollywood underwent a transformation. She starred in National Velvet in 1944 when she was 12 years old. In order to compete in the Grand National, she portrayed a girl who pretended to be a boy. The movie was a success. Elizabeth nearly received a special Oscar for juveniles. Slightly behind Peggy and Garner at the end. But there was a cost to the post. She had to adhere to a rigorous regimen to gain height in order to play Velvet Brown. Additionally, she suffered a serious back injury when she fell off her horse during filming. She suffered that injury for the rest of her life. Nevertheless, she received the horse as a present from the producers. She became a star after the film. She was offered a new contract by MGM at $750 per week. A significant sum for a youngster in the 1940s. She was headed for legendary status. Elizabeth's first marriage was arranged by MGM when she was 18. It was sent to Hotel Air Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr. The studio aimed to maintain a clean and marketable image for her. They even purchased her wedding gown. However, the marriage was a complete failure behind the scenes. Hilton was violent and a heavy drinker. Elizabeth once lost their child as a result of his violent kicks. Only 8 months passed throughout the marriage. In January 1951, she filed for divorce from him due to mental mistreatment. Her innocence was destroyed by this marriage, which also demonstrated how studios exploited their stars for financial gain. Peace didn't come from leaving Hilton. MGM was incensed at the divorce. they punished Elizabeth in order to preserve their reputation. In 1952, they made her appear in the cheesy romantic comedy Love Is Better Than Ever. It was not her forte. Her career was not aided by the movie. It was an obvious message. If you disobey the studio, you will be sued. Studios handled their biggest performers, particularly women, in this manner. Safety and happiness were less important than image. However, Ivanhoe made a change in 1952. Although Elizabeth didn't enjoy her minor part in the movie, it ended up being a big smash. It made $1.3 million in 39 days. It earned $5 million abroad and $5.8 million in the US and Canada. Globally, that amounted to $11 million. That year, it was MGM's highest-grossing film and a success in England as well. The movie received 2 Golden Globe nominations and 3 Oscar nominations. There was no denying Elizabeth's celebrity power now. Audiences continued to flock to watch her even when she didn't enjoy a role. Elizabeth's personal life was shifting once more in that same year. She was expecting her first child when she wed British actor Michael Wilding. However, funds were limited. She agreed to a new 7-year contract with MGM in order to be safe. Her weekly salary was $4,700. Which, now, would be more than $55,000 a week. The agreement gave the studio even more influence over Wilding, but it also contained a loan for a house and work. Elizabeth had to accept the roles that MGM offered her, even though she desired greater roles. She was stuck. The contract gave stability and wealth, but it also strengthened links to a system that prioritized profit over the interests of its owners. No one anticipated the tempest that was Elizabeth Taylor's life in the late 1950s and early 1960s. She threw a lavish supper at her Benedict Canyon house on May 12, 1956. What was supposed to be a beautiful evening abruptly turned. Montgomery Clift, her buddy, left early. He struck a telephone pole with his car a few hundred yards from her driveway. It was a violent crash. He had a broken face. He broke his nose. He broke his jaw. A number of teeth fell out. Taylor quickly learned of the news. She raced barefoot to the wreck without thinking. She arrived ahead of the ambulance. Clift's teeth were choking him. His mouth was gushing blood. Taylor didn't think twice. She extracted pieces of bone and teeth from his throat. Clift's face was never the same after she saved his life that night. He was permanently disfigured by the accident. Her courage that evening, however, turned into one of the most potent tales of friendship Hollywood had ever seen. However, her dedication did not end with saving his life. Clift's career took a turn for the worse after the accident. He had lost his appearance. He was deemed uninsurable by the studios. It was exacerbated by his increasing alcohol and opioid addiction. Taylor stepped in last summer of 1959 after MGM abruptly declined to cast him. She issued a directive to them. She would either walk or they would cast Clift. They went into a panic. Clift was dangerous. Thus, Taylor took an unexpected action. She provided insurance in the form of her personal $500,000 salary. Back then, that was a fortune. Clift received the part as a result of her. The movie received numerous Oscar nominations, and Taylor once again demonstrated her willingness to go above and beyond for a friend. But despite her best efforts, she was ultimately unable to save him. Clift passed away on July 23, 1966, due to a heart attack. He was only 45. In Reflections in a Golden Eye, they had intended to collaborate once more. But he died with that dream. Taylor was broken. She referred to him as her soulmate, the person who truly understood her. She fell deeper into despair, guilt, and sorrow after his death and the passing of her husband, Mike Todd. For the remainder of her life, they pursued her. That agony was linked to her struggles with addiction and strained relationships. She had been happiest when she was with Mike Todd. On February 2, 1957, they were married in Acapulco. They welcomed their daughter, Liza, in August of that year. Todd lavished her with affection and extravagant gifts. She once wore a diamond he gave her as a pendant since it was so big. For her birthday, he even rented Madison Square Garden. But happiness gave way to tragedy. Todd's aircraft, the Lucky Liz, went down in New Mexico on March 27, 1958. He passed away right away. Taylor was 26. She was saddened by the loss. At the sound, she fell to the ground. It was impossible to comfort her. She was drawn to Todd's best buddy Eddie Fisher out of grief. In that relationship, a scandal broke out. At the time, Fisher was married to America's sweetheart, Debbie Reynolds. It was said that Taylor was a home wrecker. She was referred to as a home-damaging slut by the media. As Fisher left Reynolds for Taylor, the country watched. Fisher married Taylor on May 12, 1959, just 3 hours after his divorce was finalized. The marriage, however, was doomed. Later on, Taylor acknowledged that she had never loved him. He was a crutch throughout her mourning, she claimed. They led a lonely life together. Desperate to get away, she even swallowed sleeping pills in front of him in an attempt to end it all. However, she made it through, and she felt a great deal of regret. Fisher's jealousy darkened as everything came apart. Fisher threatened Taylor when she fell in love with Richard Burton in 1961. He repeatedly pointed a revolver at her head while standing over her while she slept. She was too beautiful to shoot, he whispered. Every time she attempted to fall asleep, he would sit next to her with that revolver, caressing her arm and repeating the threat. At last, she ran away, leaving him behind and taking her kids with her. Taylor detested Butterfield 8, the movie for which she received her first Oscar in 1961. She only accepted the role in order to complete her MGM contract. The victory seemed pointless. She thought the Academy was sympathetic when they awarded her the prize. She had almost died of pneumonia that year. She stopped breathing 4 times after undergoing a tracheotomy. Even her death was accidentally reported via news outlets. When she prevailed and lived. Instead of seeing it as her acting, they regarded it as a prize for her hardship. Elizabeth Taylor endured more drama and suffering between 1958 and 1964 than most people do in a lifetime. She was dubbed America's most despised lady by the people. She was followed by protesters. Death threats and hate letters were sent. "Liz, go home" is what the signs at Fisher's concerts say. Despite everything, she persevered. "I am a survivor, a living example of what people can go through and survive," she added later. And she was precisely that. Cleopatra was more than just a film when it came out in theaters in 1963. It was an earthquake in Hollywood. The budget grew to $44 million, which is more than $426 million in today's currency. Never before had anyone spent so much money on a movie. It cost 3 times as much as Ben-Hur. The expense almost brought 20th Century Fox to ruin. The craziness of the budget was matched by the mayhem behind the scenes. The initial director was dismissed. Costumes and entire sets were discarded and recreated. During the London filming, Elizabeth Taylor nearly passed away from illness. To preserve her, the production had to relocate to Rome. However, it was not the gold-covered sets that truly drew in the world. That's what transpired between Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. They fell for one another on that set. Their romance grew to be more significant than the movie itself. Burton even received a letter from Darryl F. Zanuck, the studio head, referring to them as a combination. In addition to seeing the movie, audiences flocked to the theaters to experience the intensity that had captured Hollywood's attention. That enthusiasm prevented the studio from collapsing. In addition to appending gossip columns, the romance halted Cleopatra's progress. Their affair burst into the public eye at the beginning of 1962. At the time, they were both married. Eddie Fisher was with Taylor. Burton was with Williams' Sybil. Then came the picture that made all the difference, a picture of them cuddling aboard an Iskian yacht. The media exploded. Stars were now unable to conceal their personal lives. The 20th Century Fox stopped filming because of the incident. In the 1960s, the cost of a day off was $100,000, an incredible amount. People on the set passed out from fatigue. After being so unwell, the production manager left and passed away shortly after. Burton wrote of lustful evenings in his diaries. For an immortal one-night stand, he called Taylor. They continued kissing as though no one else was around, even after the cameras stopped. The scandal transformed a problematic movie into a worldwide phenomenon and permanently altered the way the media and Hollywood operated. Hollywood wasn't the end of the drama. Many people were incensed, and the entire world was watching. Taylor was criticized by the Vatican press in 1962. Because she loved Burton while still married, it accused her of erotic vagrancy. It referred to their relationship as an affront to the heart's majesty. The indignation garnered international attention. Because of their moral deterioration, several American lawmakers even proposed prohibiting them from returning to the country. Their passions simultaneously came to represent excess and liberation. The set's security has to be tightened. Following threats on Taylor, the Italian FBI became involved. Burton and Taylor, however, refused to give up. 10 days after her divorce was finalized, on March 15, 1964, Taylor and Fisher got divorced. In Montreal, she wed Burton. The world viewed it as a huge scandal as well as a win for love. At the time, they were the most talked about pair. Taylor's romantic life wasn't the only thing that made headlines. She also violated the salary regulations in Hollywood. The first actor, male or female, to receive $1 million for a single film was Cleopatra. She continued after that. She obtained overtime compensation of $50,000 per week. Originally scheduled to last 16 weeks, the shoot took 2 years to complete. Taylor made around $7 million at the end. Today, that would be almost $60 million. She also received a portion of the movie's earnings. That has never been done by a star. Actors in the future took after her. Taylor's commercial acumen matched her celebrity status. She even passed along her demands to Eddie Fisher while negotiating some of her terms from the bathtub. Fox accepted, and she raised a champagne toast. She altered how performers would be compensated in the future and broke the ceiling for women in the film industry. As seen by his own words in his diaries, Richard Burton was completely enamored with Taylor. His descriptions of her beauty were poetic and unvarnished. He spoke of her unique and perilous loveliness and described her as incredibly attractive. He went into great detail on every part of her body, including her lips and shape. He claimed in one entry that she was more lovely than pornography could ever hope to be. When they were separated, he wrote, she was a pain in the stomach. Although he acknowledged that he was totally enchanted by her, he thought that she had improved him as a man. His intimate words revealed the depth of his affection, while the world only witnessed their flaming romance. In 1966, Elizabeth Taylor shocked the world. She changed herself at the age of 33 because, really, who was scared of Virginia Woolf? She put on 30 pounds. She allowed herself to appear crude, resentful, and savage. It worked, despite the shock of audiences who knew she was a remarkable beauty. The movie won 5 Oscars out of 13 nominations. She won her second Oscar for Best Actress. It was the first time that all 4 of the key actors received nominations. The unvarnished, violent tale of a shattered marriage defied all American film conventions. It was conserved as a cultural and historical treasure by the Library of Congress in 2013, decades later. Elizabeth's willingness to risk all for her work was demonstrated in the film. Her life was equally stressful off-screen. Even acquaintances were rendered speechless by the ferocious arguments that characterized her marriage to Richard Burton. Burton described a battle in 1969 in his diary. Intoxicated and enraged, Taylor used her ringed fingers to smack him in the head. I would have killed any man who did that, he stated. They were vicious in their disputes. She accused him of lying, being intoxicated, being arrogant, and being greedy. Their battles were more intense than their love. Friends frequently couldn't decide whether to intervene or flee. Much of their suffering was fueled by alcohol. Burton described how Taylor would go to sleep high and speak like a crazed child in a baby voice. They began drinking at breakfast and continued until they passed out in the middle of the night. Taylor later acknowledged that while in the hospital, she combined Demerol and Jack Daniels. She claimed that it made her feel like a kite. It was impossible to talk. She was too drunk to pay attention. They were almost ruined by their drinking. The first divorce was finalized by June 1974. Burton was devastated. "This woman is my life," he wrote. Although their breakup garnered international attention, they were unable to remain apart. They got married again in Botswana 16 months later. Taylor wore feathered green clothing. Burton had on a red shirt and red socks. The ceremony lasted for 20 minutes. By the river, they raised a champagne toast. The world hoped it would finally bring about peace. However, the fissures appeared quickly. In less than 9 months, that second marriage ended. By February of 1976, they had split up. In July, the divorce was finalized. The same old issues, drugs, envy, and violent altercations, resurfaced. They couldn't be saved by any amount of desire. Burton then had 2 additional marriages before passing away in 1984. Taylor got married twice more. Their tale turned into a myth of short-lived love. In 1976, Taylor married John Warner for the second time. She initially supported his Senate campaign. Although she was lonely and dissatisfied with life in Washington, crowds flocked out to see her. As Warner concentrated on politics, she felt confined and abandoned. Like wearing purple to a Republican ladies' lunch when instructed not to, she subtly rebelled. She described that period of time as lonely and dull. By December of 1981, they had split up. In November 1982, the divorce was finalized. During that marriage, her spirit and health collapsed. The depression struck hard. People started chatting about her weight gain. Even worse, she started drinking and using drugs more. She received 1,000 prescriptions for 28 medications from 3 doctors between 1983 and 1988. An expert who studied the doses said she must be dead since they were so severe. She combined Demerol and brandy. At night, she took Valium and sleeping pills. She would awake in a haze and bump against walls. She said that she would have perished without assistance. Her relatives provided the assistance. Roddy McDowell, her brother, and her children organized an intervention. They pleaded with her for assistance. She concurred. Following a final night, she checked herself into the Betty Ford Center in December 1983. She was there for 7 weeks. She told the truth. "My name is Elizabeth. I suffer from alcoholism and addiction." She was humbled by it. She was in the same room. It saved her, but she had to do chores. It also encouraged a lot of other people to seek assistance. Throughout it all, Taylor disclosed something that few had anticipated. She was shy, so she drank. She claimed to be really shy. "Drinking gives me courage." However, the alcohol that facilitated her speech made her feel worse. She consumed large amounts of alcohol without appearing intoxicated, which only served to increase her dependence. 40 hours of Elizabeth Taylor's most intimate thoughts were left unread in an attic for over 50 years. Journalist Richard Merriman ghostwrote her memoir and recorded these intensely private talks between 1964 and 1965. During their sessions at the Beverly Hills Hotel, on ships cruising the Atlantic, and in smoke-filled, secret-filled rooms, he had recorded her unfiltered voice. The tapes were never intended for public consumption. The tapes were discovered by Merriman's widow among his belongings after his death in 2015. They were eventually retrieved by the Taylor estate in 2019. These identical tapes served as the focal point of the Elizabeth Taylor, The Lost Tapes HBO program in 2024. For the first time, Taylor's true self, unguarded, emotional, and genuine, was audible. Elizabeth Taylor was unaware that her words would ever be heard by anyone other than Merriman. She opened out in ways no one anticipated during the 40 hours of conversation. "That's off the record," she would often tell him, "or you can't use that in the book." She believed she was in charge. She spoke so freely because of this. Her regrets about failed marriages, her grief with Eddie Fisher, and the suffering that comes with fame are all revealed on the tapes. She talked about her first marriage's horror of violence and intimate moments with James Dean, which she did not include in her published memoir. If Taylor had realized that the world would eventually pay attention, she would never have said these things, according to the documentary's director, Nanette Burstein. Alcohol also had a role. Throughout the interviews, champagne, whiskey, and cocktails were always present. The smoke swirled and the glasses clinked, whether in nightclubs, hotel suites, or even on a houseboat. The alcohol broke down barriers. They forced Taylor to cry, laugh, and make frank confessions. Interviews were reduced to sessions. They offered a window into the lonely, stressful life of a star. The mask appeared to be removed with each drink, revealing the true woman. As she revealed the details of a life spent in the spotlight, you could practically feel the atmosphere as you sat across from her at a table covered in empty glasses. Under the surface, Taylor struggled with her personal issues. Despite being regarded as one of the most beautiful women in the world, she acknowledged feeling like a fake. She admitted to Merriman that, on the inside, she felt like a scared young child who had been thrust too quickly into adulthood. She questioned her beauty and was embarrassed by the admiration she received for it. She felt that she symbolized something terrible because of the headlines, the scandals, and her 8 marriages to 7 men. Her first marriage, which ended in cruelty and a devastating miscarriage, left her with severe wounds. She bore the weight of a childhood influenced by film studios and celebrity behind the glitz. The most notable aspect is Taylor's self-description. "I lived as 2 people," she stated. Her family was familiar with Elizabeth Taylor, a real woman. The other Elizabeth Taylor, whom she referred to as Cellophane, was also present. Millions of people saw the Hollywood production, but no one knew what it was. She continued because of this divide. The genuine Elizabeth yearned for a normal life and love. Elizabeth, dressed in cellophane, endured the rumors while grinning for the cameras. Her ability to distinguish between these two sides was evident even to Tim Mendelsohn, her assistant. The globe was engulfed in terror in 1985. People were unaware of the rapid spread of AIDS. Rock Hudson, a close friend of Elizabeth Taylor, passed away from the illness that year. It permanently altered her. Taylor took a different tack than the majority of celebrities, who either remained mute or avoided the problem. She raised her voice. In 1985, she was a co-founder of the Foundation for AIDS Research, or AMFAR. She exposed a sickness that many were afraid of by using her celebrity. However, Taylor worked in addition to talking. She contributed to around $325 million in research funding. She provided assistance to more than 2,000 scientists worldwide. She established the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation in 1991 to provide patients with direct care. Her work saved lives. She did more than raise funds. She altered public perceptions about AIDS and its survivors. Taylor took the initiative when others fled. Fear and hatred surrounding AIDS. A lot of stars stayed away from it. Taylor, however, was unique. When others fled, she was like the Lone Star, according to AMFAR's Dr. Mervyn Silverman. She went to see patients. She oversaw fundraising events. She even made a plea for assistance in front of Congress. She opposed discriminatory laws, such as the 1987 prohibition on HIV-positive individuals obtaining U.S. visas. She didn't care that she was jeopardizing her own reputation. She made the truth visible to everyone. She inspired compassion for those in need. She became a leader in celebrity activism because of her bravery. Taylor was more than just a movie star. She was also a savvy businesswoman. Her debut fragrance, Passion, was introduced in 1987. White Diamonds came out in 1991. The success of that perfume was enormous. White Diamonds earned $1.5 billion by 2018. Taylor influenced the development of the contemporary celebrity fragrance industry. From the advertisements to the smell, she was involved in every aspect of it. Acting never brought her as much wealth as her perfume business. Her fortune was valued between $600 million and $1 billion at the time of her death. Her AIDS Foundation still receives 20% of white diamond sales. Taylor demonstrated how business might benefit people as well. Her previous marriage was unique. At the Betty Ford Clinic, she got to know Larry Fortensky. He worked in construction and was 20 years younger. In recovery, they were both battling their inner demons. They were wedded Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch in 1991. It made headlines. Every detail was reported by the media, but the strain was too great. In 1996, they got divorced. Fortensky received $800,000 in her will after receiving $1 million in the settlement. Without the glamour of Hollywood, their love was genuine and uncomplicated. Taylor stayed true to her passions even as she grew older. She has her own set of rules. The date of Elizabeth Taylor's death was March 23, 2011. Her age was 79. With her 4 children by her side, she died away at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. A golden age came to an end with her passing. She was more than just a famous actress. She was a legend, a fighter, and a giver. Her estate, which ranged from $600 million to $1 billion, demonstrated her success outside of the spotlight. She was mourned by people all throughout the world. They recalled her heart and her passion. Even now, her nonprofit continues to combat HIV and AIDS.